GM friends, welcome to the show where we deep dive into the intersection of AI and blockchain with the Chads merging these two worlds together. This is GigaBrains. I'm your host, Colonel Saunders. I've worked in emerging tech for 20 years and AI and machine learning at Amazon headquarters. Today's guest is Cedrick, founder of ForumAI. ForumAI is a DePIN by AI network that aims to bring decentralized AI agents into Web3 gaming via NPCs. Cedrick, welcome, my friend. How are you doing today?
Yeah, hello, mate. Yes, thank you a lot for having me. I'm doing great. Yeah, thank you.
Nice. So, I know you've had an interesting journey. You were a physicist at one point. You've been in tech leadership roles, both in Web 2 and Web 3. Could we jump a little bit into your background? I think it's diverse, and I'd love to also understand how, some of that experience is also maybe shaping how you're approaching the building of Forum AI.
Yeah, sure. I started coding like really early. I think you see like a lot of the founders in the Silicon Valley. They all start coding in their teens. I did so too. And yeah, when I then finished like high school, I did not really want to go into computer science just because I thought like there's not much that I can learn that I can't teach myself. Like especially because I had all that experience. I had worked as a software engineer before. And so, yeah, I decided to study physics more or less as like a passion project. And I think it teaches you a lot. So when you look at the top founders, and you will find a lot of engineers and also physicists. I love to hire them. They know how to think, right? So we all are like really focused on first principles thinking, on value creation and all of that stuff. Yeah, those are things that are really valuable in the founder journey as in the Web3 space as a whole. And yeah, I think that helped me a lot. And I was always also really engineering focused, so that's also why I switched to the software development world. I worked for like various startups afterwards, mostly in tech roles and then tech leadership roles. Also went into the Web3 space then as a software engineer, smart contracts especially, and worked for like DeFi projects, games. I contributed to a lot of different protocols. And yeah, now I'm here, founding my own startup. Also, founded a couple of startups before too, mostly smaller ones in the Web2 space.
That's exciting, man. Yeah, no. It was interesting. Like when I found out you were a physicist, I wasn't shocked by it because I'll tell you, as someone that's worked in a lot of these different fields, I think the reason why we haven't seen a ton of, legitimate AI dApps or a legitimate social dApps is these are very challenging things to build, right? They're much more, intense and I think require a different level of experience. And so, not surprised to see such an incredible background for someone that's building an AI product. I'd love to kind of jump a little bit into like journey and vision. So obviously you're bridging decentralized AI agents with, Web3 gaming. I think, first, like, let's jump into AI agents. For anyone that doesn't know what an AI agent is, can you just give a quick explainer for them?
Yeah, sure. So, as an AI agent, and we really try to mostly focus on gaming right now. But basically, it's like an artificial intelligence that tries to like mimic human behavior. Meaning more or less you get inputs like, a monster in a game or like some chat input. It can basically be anything. And then you want to use AI to create a reaction. Like, when there's a monster in a game, you then go and shoot at it. Or, if you get some text input, you produce some text output or also, do something in the game like go farm some wood. So yeah, it's like pretty simple. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll give folks a couple examples. As someone that's been in AI for like over 6 years, I've always thought that AI agents are kind of like the $1 trillion use case, and here's why. So, I've worked with like pretty much every sector of business globally. And I think at the end of the day, like what we're going to see, and tell me if you agree or disagree, is like we're going to see AI agents at kind of every level, right? So, both in Web 2 and Web 3. And, a couple examples I could give folks are, your favorite clothing brand is, H&M, right? Right now they've got your purchase history, they've got your favorites, and they can target you from a marketing perspective based off of that when a new product comes. I think what's going to happen for, clothing and retail sites like that in the future is, now because they'll have this AI agent who's built, a robust data set against you, they know your favorite colors, they know your favorite patterns, they know your favorite materials, and on the reverse side, maybe the things you've returned, right? And so now when you go to that site, it's completely customized to align for you, right? Or you may not even go to a site. It just may be directly serving you, those recommendations that quote unquote, this item is 99% aligned with previous purchasing behavior. Another example I could give is, I think about the travel industry and hotels. Like, I'm a big Hyatt guy, right? And so if you think about the data that they have, they know what countries I go to, they know what chains I stay at, they know the types of rooms that I have. But imagine going deeper down the road where they know that, every time this year I'm in Singapore for an event, right? Or they know the colors of the rooms, that I've liked the best, or the bedding, or even the exact location of the room. And so again, by having this much more, I would say, robust data set, it's able to intelligently match me, right? And I think that is what's so interesting. And you'll not only see these kind of there, but I think you'll see a lot of AI agents in kind of the customer service space. But I personally believe that we're going to see AI agents in nearly every business sector globally down the road. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, sure. So, I think like recommendation algorithms, I think that was like the one thing that really has found like a lot of product market fit, right? So, like you said, Amazon and Google, like the whole social media space. I think that's pretty big on that. So the recommendation algorithms, right, have been like the number one use case so far for AI. You see that in Amazon, e-commerce as a whole, like social media, and all of that stuff. It's really the only thing that I think has really found product market fit yet. But now I think we are at a stage where AI agents will look into like replacing a lot of the manual or like labor, especially like the digital labor that people have to do. Like all the boring stuff from law, yeah, all of that, like borrowing e-commerce, customer service, and all of that stuff. I think that's really big because especially those industries, just they cost a lot, especially like human capital. You need like a lot of highly skilled labor. And yeah, I think that will be replaced.
Yeah, 100%. And I think also too, when you think about machine learning, again, a lot of these agents are obviously starting off with, data sets or things that either exist first party or, third party data sets that they're purchasing. But again, the intelligence of these agents grows exponentially, right? Because through machine learning, it's just continuously optimizing and enhancing. So I think the power of these is going to be pretty significant down the road. I'm curious, again, you're bridging decentralized AI agents with Web3 gaming. Like, what inspired you to create a solution like this? And how do you think it differentiates from other maybe AI powered gaming solutions that you're seeing, in development or live right now?
Actually started as a Web3 gaming project. We have started as a deeper network that tried to decentralize OpenAI or like the other big services like Together AI that host open source machine learning models. The reason behind that was that I was doing some research before. What we were doing was basically create newsletters that were custom AI generated by inputting a lot of content from all over the internet, some YouTube videos, newspaper articles, and all of that stuff. And obviously, we had a couple of copyright doubts and problems. And so, what we thought was we can just decentralize the whole service, especially the data gathering and then AI parts. The issue was there was basically no decentralized AI framework or protocol that was comparable to the Web 2 solutions and the Web 2 world. And yeah, that's what we started to build. And that's what still is our core product, right? Our deeper network that hosts open source machine learning models in data centers from all over the world. We basically want to have every model and create that all in one solution. And then we looked more into the gaming world because we have all a Web3 gaming background, I think the whole team. And we are really passionate about the space. And the NPCs are, I think, the first real approach and the like first section where we think we can find like product market fit there.
Yeah. For anyone that's not familiar, can you just dive into NPCs for a second? Just give folks a quick overview of what they are.
Yeah, so NPCs are just like non-playable characters, meaning they are more or less, computer powered humans or, really dumb computer powered humans that just can do a couple of things like have pre-generated text that you can click through and like get some information. Maybe you can do some trades and exchange some items, but all like really stupid and dumbed down where you can just have like a couple of options, right?
I would agree with that. I think like one thing I just call out for anyone that's not familiar, like, I've noticed there's a pretty decent rise in, even Web2 businesses looking at decentralized AI, and it makes total sense, right? Because again, when you think about AI, we can take ChatGPT as the example. That entire search history is, in a sense, tied to you, right? I know folks that are even doing things like taking their medical records and, having them analyzed by AI agents and AI products. And obviously that data is very sensitive, right? And so when I looked at, for example, like the recent OpenAI hack, I was like, well, this is exactly why we need decentralized AI, because, you look at even just kind of big business hacks, Target, I remember, has been hacked a few times. Marriott's been hacked a few times. Even Snowflake, for anyone that's not familiar, like giant B2B data platform that a lot of, big brands use. And so I think, again, like the decentralization of AI just makes total sense, because, again, you have to decentralize that data in order to start really, I think, using AI effectively, because you're going to be putting a lot of sensitive information in there, right? So imagine, for example, you have a doctor, a doctor's office that you use, and they have an app that you use to kind of book appointments and message each other. And, imagine that all of your medical records are being inputted into an AI agent, that can help identify, do you actually need a doctor's visit, or, is this an ongoing allergy issue? You don't want that data obviously getting into the wrong hands for multiple reasons. So I applaud you for really kind of like leaning forward into solving these challenges. I think, again, as we talk about challenges, and I have a few assumptions, I'd love to understand from you, like, when you've been building these decentralized AI models, especially when dealing with, NPCs, like what are some of the biggest challenges that you've faced, or if there's a new builder out there that's, thinking about going into this space, like maybe what are some of the challenges that they're going to face? Yeah.
Yeah, I think for us right now, it's mostly technical challenges. So
Yeah.
we have really picked a problem that's pretty hard. I think even for all the AI companies that are starting up, the majority go the smarter route of doing something more simple, where they just try to solve like a problem, and we try to solve like a business problem, and in addition also have to solve like a really hard technical problem. That's like way harder than just using OpenAI as a backend. Just use the OpenAI API and use their models. So yeah, for us it's mostly the technical challenge of games are really complicated. They are all really different. But there are some things that are quite common across all the games. So the gamers in the audience will know that if you start a new game, you basically know a couple of core things. You probably can jump, you probably can farm some resources, and you roughly know like the core functionality just because you have played so many games and can generalize a lot of knowledge. And so, yeah, our core problem that we do right now is try to teach the AI those core principles to really make the NPCs really, really smart. But yeah, beyond that, I think what the people should mostly focus on is actually try to find like a real problem by talking to customers, right? validate your whole idea before you do anything else. Yeah, I think that's the core thing.
I agree. I think, just to kind of close that out, like product market fit is so important. I think, that's why, in my opinion, ChatGPT took off so quickly was, how many people in the world use Google, how many times a day from a search standpoint, right? So you're creating an alternative to that. And I remember like I helped launch Microsoft Bing back in the day. And when we launched Bing, our goal wasn't to take over 100% market share from Google. It was, to, I think, try to take over, 1 to 3%, which is a pretty sizable amount. But, same thing. I look at, a lot of these AI projects that I've seen to date, I think lack product market fit. And then to your point, a lot of it to me feels like they're basically just, skinning ChatGPT or skinning some sort of existing AI element, just to lean into like the AI narrative and say, oh, here's our AI play, or, oh, we're now an AI project. And I think, folks like you and me that actually come from this space, like we see right through that. And so what I would say for retail traders or folks that are just, kind of entering blockchain, really even use AI to learn about AI, use ChatGPT to better understand, how AI works, how AI is developed, how machine learning accelerates, the value of different AI products and agents, so that you can really see through what I would say like the vaporware is out there and start to identify, real AI projects, building real, I would say, good product market fit and use cases for the future. One thing I'd love to understand on the tech side is, like, you've designed ForumAI obviously to streamline the use of machine learning models through smart contracts, but how do model market smart contracts work in practice? And like, what does that mean for developers who maybe want to incorporate AI into their games?
Yeah, sure. So, the smart contracts are the core of our deeper network. So basically, they are more or less like the database that stores all the active nodes. And a node, in our case, is just a data center. So developers have to interact with the smart contracts to get the addresses and all the information of each node. And then they can choose like which node they can take and which node they want to interact with. Yeah, the smart contracts are also used for the payments. So basically, what happens is that you send the money, the USDC. We use USDC for the payments right now. You also send the USDC to the smart contracts, and then it gets sent to the nodes. Yeah, that would be like a simple overview there.
Very cool. Very cool. In terms of mainnet, like I noticed that you guys recently launched mainnet, as well as an NPC maker tool. Since going live, I would say, what's the response been so far? Any key learnings or takeaways that you've had?
Yeah, sure. So what we have seen definitely is that our NPC maker, so the NPC maker, it's basically a no-code tool that we have built on top of the deeper network. So the
Wow.
deeper network is that, really technical thing that you can use for basically everything. It's just, again, that data centers all over the world that host the machine learning models. And the NPC maker is that tool that we built on top of it that allows you to create the NPCs in a couple of minutes, right? And also integrate them way more easily. It's also a bit centralized. And yeah, we certainly saw that a lot more people want to use the NPC maker, just because it's simpler. It still uses the decentralization in the backend. Yeah, we have seen a lot of people using it. So a lot of people signed up for the NPC maker. A lot of NPCs have been created and they have been used via the APIs. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. I've definitely noticed, especially in the past, I would say like 6 to 12 months, just a huge rise in kind of no code AI solutions, which I think is smart because, again, when you think about the B2B potential of AI agents, right? Like how many businesses, big, small, Web 2, Web 3 are going to have them. I think no code solutions are so important because, otherwise what you're dealing with is, a small pool of AI developers having to do a lot of manual labor, whereas versus, with no code solutions, a brand or business can come in, they can create their own, and then obviously, modify it and upgrade it and, leverage best practices. I'd be curious in terms of the no code NPC maker, like, for any developers that are listening or that are curious or, game builders, what are some of the best use cases? So, why would I come and use the NPC maker, to create an NPC?
Oh yeah. So we have really had the NPC maker in mind to deploy and create the NPCs as quickly as possible. So and it's really that simple. You sign up, then you can create an NPC, and an NPC creation is just you give it a name and you describe the character a bit, and that's done. You create it, and then can really simply add it to your application, and you don't have to worry about anything. We store the chats. We basically take care of anything, and you just have to do a couple of API calls. It's a REST API. It's really simple to use. Yeah.
Wow, that's cool. Yeah. As I think as we look forward towards like the future, or even like the future of Web3 gaming, I would ask, as someone that's kind of been at the forefront of AI and Web3 gaming, what do you see as the future of decentralized AI in gaming? Obviously, I think NPCs is one element of that. But what are some of the other things that you predict, or things that you think will further drive adoption down the road?
Yeah, I think AI will be key in the future of Web3 gaming and gaming in general, also the Web2 gaming world. But it's also not like the core thing that the people should rely on, especially new games. You have to create a game that people want to use even without AI. And
Yeah.
so what we see mostly that AI is a core tool to increase user retention, to increase the daily active users, to increase the time that they spend per day on the games, and also increase the revenues. But the core should always be the game, and I think AI will have a big impact. I think NPCs will be the core thing so far, and then it will be mostly important for game development, right? So like you get cheaper, you can reduce the development cost. You can create new game assets, a lot of that stuff. There are also like a lot of interesting approaches of like doing game engines that are AI based, and yeah, it's just all like I think it's just a couple of years in the future. I think that's
Yeah.
all speculation.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, one of the things I've been looking at pretty closely for some time is exactly what you mentioned, the AI game engines. And I think, for me, like it makes total sense, because if you think about, open world games in the future, having the ability to continuously generate, new lands, new worlds, or even, leveraging the NPC, like understand the player's preferences. So, case in point, maybe I love playing Zelda, right? Which is, open world, daytime, nature, mountains, right? Or let's say my friend is a big horror game fan, and they play a lot of open worlds in the dark, and, things like that. Imagine the ability for the AI to identify your preferences in gaming. And then all of a sudden, what was a large land is an infinite land, right? So I definitely expect to see more of that for sure. I want to dive a little bit more into the technical side, because I know we have a lot of developers, obviously, that tune in. In terms of smart contracts and AI, can you just break down the technical aspects of how your SDK works?
Yeah, sure. We have created the SDK to make the whole smart contract interactions and the whole also wallet and blockchain interaction as simple as possible. Our goal was really to create a solution that people that don't know anything about AI and don't know anything about blockchain beyond like I know how to send some USDC to my wallet, can use without any issues. So yeah, our SDK basically takes care of all the blockchain interactions. You can just make a call similar to the OpenAI API, OpenAI SDK. Um,
Yep.
we will take care of sending the money to the nodes, sending the request to the node, and all of the rest. Right, the streaming works without any issues. Um, yeah, I can. We are all open sourced, of course. You can look into the code if you're really interested in how exactly it's implemented. But yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, big fan of open source. Let's pivot a little bit towards DeepIn. So for anyone that doesn't know, DeepIn stands for Decentralized Physical Infrastructure Network. I always laugh because I'm sure you're familiar, but going back into like my early tech days, Internet of Things was always a big topic, right? The convergence of physical products in the digital world, the internet and physical in real life items. I think in crypto, we've decided to call it DePIN. But would love to dive a little bit deeper. Can you maybe for folks that are maybe less familiar with DePIN, explain, what this means and how DePINs play a role in AI agents that you guys power?
Yeah, sure. So DePIN is like a really interesting space in the in the whole like Web3 ecosystem. Although we
Yeah.
have not seen that much adoption yet. So yeah, I think basically what it means is you create new networks and you often try to get more like increase the supply side a lot. So it's normally like data centers or miners or whatever it can be. So Helium, they do like a lot of Internet of Things connection providers and all of that stuff. And you generally try to bootstrap that with your own token, right? Where you basically pay the suppliers with your token if there's not enough demand on the side. So they still make a lot of profit there.
Right.
Yeah, it's the core of our overall business model. Our DePIN network, again, we have data centers from all over the world that can connect to the blockchain and provide their computing power without getting banned. We can't blacklist users. We want it to be as open as possible, so people can reliably use our product without having to fear that their own business model will be like disrupted or will get blocked. We outages, I think, are a big thing still in the Web2 AI world, right? Where you build a product and then you get banned because some of the users that you can't really control do some requests that are not appropriate or against the rules. Yeah, so that's our core that we do. So yeah.
Yeah, no, totally. I agree. I mean, it's interesting. Like 2 years ago, I started saying, you know, I'm very, very bullish on GPU DePIN specifically, and the reason I said that, and I'm sure you agree, is anyone that's ever worked in AI or built an AI product or understands machine learning understands how GPU intensive most AI is. And again, when we think about this notion of every single business in every single country having some sort of AI integration into their product or an AI agent that's being used on the customer front. I mean, we're looking at an insane amount of demand for GPUs, right? And to your point right now, most companies are getting those GPUs from centralized solutions, whether it's AWS or Microsoft Azure or Salesforce Cloud. And so, what I've always predicted is, supply and demand. It's like NVIDIA can only make so many chips. And, over time, that demand is going to exponentially increase. And if the supply can't keep pace with the demand, obviously what's going to happen is, price is going to go up, right? And so I've been very bullish on these, decentralized GPU networks because, again, they offer, an alternative solution. And, I've seen things like, the aggregation of smaller data centers all over the world to create, in a sense, a similar AWS type experience. I've also seen things like, gaming computers that tend to have a lot of compute power. Folks are not gaming 24/7. Half the day maybe they're sleeping, right? How do you aggregate all of that together and then similar to an Airbnb, create a model where that can then be rented out to businesses at a more effective rate? The thing you brought up, which I agree with, is like we haven't seen a ton of DePIN to date, and I agree with you because I think part of it is product market fit. And then I think the other part of it is the marketing of the physical product. And I'll give you kind of two examples that I've seen that I think are at least smart or approaching it the right way. Like, one has been Hive Mapper, right? Product market fit. It's like we want to map, countries, right? We want to, similar to Google Maps. And so if we put this physical product in your vehicle, you're effectively doing the job of what we used to have to do, right? And then we can collect all of that data and compensate you for that data. I think that one made total sense. And what I saw was truckers got really interested in it. And then through word of mouth, a lot of truckers started using it. And it makes sense. These are guys that are on the road, 24/7 cross country, and now here's a new sustainable revenue stream for them. And so there's a win-win kind of on both sides. The other one that I've kind of taken notice of is Helium, who's trying to create a little bit of like a decentralized internet solution. And what I've seen them do, which I think is quite smart, is I've invested in a lot of D2C businesses over the year that have been very successful, but they're taking a little bit of this D2C marketing approach. So I'm seeing a lot of advertising on Instagram, which is where, most D2C brands, effectively built their businesses. So I do think, again, like it's a combination of, folks building physical products that may not actually have product market fit or may not actually have demand. And then I think the second is, again, if you're going to create a physical product, you've got to get that out there. And so you've got to lean into some of the, more traditional Web2 marketing tactics, I think, to do that. Cool. Let's talk payment and model markets a little bit more. How do you ensure seamless payment and authorization when developers access, some of these open source AI models?
Yeah, so we, of course, I already said that we use the SDK for that. So the SDK manages all of that. So basically how it works is you use your private key and you give it to the SDK. And we basically use the USDC in your wallet for the payments. And we keep the code really simple to make it as secure as possible, of course. But like especially like bigger providers, they can also just do the manual integration. We have really like detailed documentation on how everything works, and then you can do just the manual integration to really get even closer to your own code and your own like infrastructure. But basically everything is done via normal like USDC transactions on the blockchain.
That's great. What I'm curious, what kind of security or trust mechanisms have you put into place? Because obviously, folks want to protect their IP or want to protect their user data.
Yeah. So as right now, the main issue, I think you also mentioned it earlier, for like, you want to keep your data safe and private. But the core thing is really just local regulation, right? So, the US, the EU, like we all have different regulation on what data has to be stored, right? So where like you just have to store the data just because it's the government requirement. I think that's what OpenAI has to do. When you even use the temporary chats, it has to be stored like for a month or so.
Yep.
Yeah, like we are really so we really try to keep everything to a minimum, right? Like be as secure as possible, but still be like compliant with all the local laws. And it always makes sense to then also choose like countries where you have like a lot of privacy, right? So I think the EU and the US, that might not be the best places to really store and host those data centers and nodes. Also because just the energy cost, especially like in the EU, is quite high.
Correct. Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I'm curious, obviously we have a lot of folks that, are aspiring to, launch their own project one day the same way you did, or dive into the world of AI. What advice would you give developers trying to integrate machine learning into a Web3 project, especially when working with decentralized technologies?
Yeah, so the first thing is talk to your users if they even want AI in their project. I think the majority will also then learn that nobody wants that. But yeah, for the few cases where the people actually want that, and there's a lot of value to be created there. Choose a good like decentralized solution that you can rely on. I think obviously ForumAI does a great job there. I think that would be my.
Yeah. And what do you think, I would say, like, just to follow up on that, for someone that's interested in building, at the intersection of AI and blockchain, like, what do you think are some of the critical skills they need, or maybe what are some recommendations you have, of types of things they should learn or dive deeper into? Because obviously, like we said, building in AI, building in social, building in gaming, these are a lot of times not first time developers.
Yeah. Especially when they are developers, right? So I talk with like a lot of developers, and we can't repeat that enough. Like, um, you should always focus first on talking with your users and really be data driven. So make sure to always have like good measurement data in place. Make sure to measure every part of the user journey to really see like what are the users using, are they using it, are they coming back. You want to focus a lot on retention and people staying and using your product, not just trying it out once. Figure out to build something that the people want, and not just build something because it's fun to do. Otherwise,
Yeah.
you might just waste your time.
I'm curious, by the way, like I totally agree with you. I think it's like, don't bother building if there isn't product market fit, because then effectively you're building for no one but yourself. But I think, one thing I'm curious about, like, I know you guys have over 25,000 users already, which is pretty impressive for Web3. Why do you think that is? Because I candidly, like, I've looked at the back end metrics and I've seen many AI projects that have literally zero users. I would say, the questions for me is, what's the secret sauce? Have there been any strategic approaches to growing your community? Obviously, I totally see the B2B benefit of scaling a user base based on what you're doing. But, again, for maybe someone who's building an AI product that hasn't been able to attract, anything near what you have, what are some recommendations or best practices that you can share?
Yeah, so what we have to say here, of course, is that the majority of our users are like normal consumers, right? That just wanted to try and talk with our NPCs, right? We have like a couple of solutions like demos and so on, that the people can talk to. And I think a lot of our growth came from our incentivized testnet campaign and all of
Mm,
that stuff.
cool. Very cool. Yeah.
Yeah, just on that. So really, what I would focus on and what we are focused on internally is a lot of B2B sales. So we try to reach out to other companies, and that's I would not look at the user numbers, especially like on those artificial ones, like how many consumers are using our products. Just
Mhm.
like look at those users that actually generate revenue, and for us, that would be mostly like B2B companies, and really
Yeah.
focus on them mostly. You want to make sure that you have like some path on generating some income and revenue. Do a lot of the classic B2B sales. That's what we do. We reach out to other projects. We look at conferences and talk with other projects there. That's the core.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think, like, there's one thing I want to double click on. I've been both a B2C and a B2B marketer for 20 years, and I think, when I look at the deep in space, again, Internet of Things, if I were a builder, I would be very focused on B2B. And I'll give you just the very easy to understand example. Let's go back to Helium, right? Decentralized, Wi-Fi networks. You have two choices, right? You can market to individual customers on Instagram, right? And you're going to get what's called a CAC, a customer acquisition cost, where you're like, okay, here's how many times I had to run an ad on Instagram. I had to retarget the same person in order to get, the frequency that I needed to break through, and now I've converted them and I've sold one of my devices, right? That's a very, expensive and I would say a bit, manual process. In contrast, you could go to a company like Marriott, right? Sign what's called an enterprise level business deal. And the next thing you know, you've got your devices in every single Marriott hotel globally. And now you're powering millions and millions of rooms on the back of one deal, right? So I would just, applaud you. And I would say for other builders out there, if you are going into the deep in space, think about B2B, because typically B2B businesses have the ability to scale much faster because when you're doing sales, I mean, you're effectively selling one to many versus one to one, right? And so again, if you're trying to, gain traction, gain users, a lot of times you're going to succeed more by leveraging another business that already has a large user base, right? So 100%. Well, listen, my friend, it's been an absolute pleasure. I mean, I've definitely learned some new things. I'm sure other folks have too. Where are the best ways for folks to find you, to learn more about the product?
Yeah, just I would say start with our Twitter. ForumAI. You will find us. You can also check our website, forumai.dev. Yeah, check us out.
Awesome.
We are really willing to help you. Come to our Discord. We have always developers online that can help you integrate and all of that stuff.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, listen, my friend, thanks again for joining. For everyone out there, this has been GigaBrains, the show where we bring in some of the brightest brains in crypto that are merging the worlds of AI and blockchain. We hope you learned something. Go out and create your first NPC and have a great day, everybody. Cheers.